Hello, everyone. Slave, be aware that the Lord of all the East is here. A flickering storm cloud shows his lightning to you. These words of Rumi come to us across 800 years. Rumi's writings are loaded with both astrological imagery and layered meanings. Lord of all the East is both his great teacher Shams, whose name literally means the sun, as well as our local star and luminary. Our sun, Lord of all the East, dominates the day, the declination graph, the tropical zodiac that we Western astrologers love to use, the seasons, weather, and mundane astrology. Right, so for weather, we have a few different approaches. It's different to other astrology. It's very local. It's done for a specific place, and it's relative. The charts are read relative to a known climate. So that climate that you are going to be predicting for, that place, you have to know the climate for at least 3 or 4 years, if not longer. Natural weather comes from the west because the earth spins from west to east and brings the weather with us. This is weather that's good for us and our farming activities. Unnatural weather comes from the east, from Saturn, and it's Saturnian in nature. So we look for Saturn. When we've got Saturn in weather signatures, we have weather that is not good for humans or our farming activities. When Mother Nature moves and shakes, as she does with tsunamis, with hurricanes, humans are ants, and we would do well to observe the natural movements of elephants, of birds, because they pick up the warnings in the vibrations, in the frequencies of our earth and move away. And so we need to imbibe more of that, as was done in many years gone by. Right, so to do the weather astrology for the period 20 March this year to 20 March next year, for one location, we need 77 charts. 4 solar ingress charts for each equinox and solstice, 52 lunar quarter charts, 13 a season, 21 Mercury sign ingress charts, so every time Mercury goes into a new sign, and all the station charts, retrograde and direct. So you can see it's quite a bit of work. Right, why did I entitle my talk Wild Times Ahead? Number one, in Feb 2026, we have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, last in a series of 4 conjunctions. And the signature of this is freak storms. And according to George McCormack, who wrote an amazing correspondence course, which is now recorded in a beautiful book, he says that this is abnormal atmospheric conditions that endure for weeks and sometimes months. And unusual weather extremes may affect large geographical areas through a whole year. And the other issue is that any faster planets, these are slow planets, slow movers, any of the faster movers, what I've observed, every time they translate, that there's only currently 6 degrees difference between Saturn and Neptune, and they're going to wobble back and forth until they meet up at 0 Aries on the 20th of Feb. If Mars comes across by conjunction or any of the hard aspects, and even possibly the soft, it will activate that freak storm potential. I've seen this over and over again when I've been looking at historical storms. It's translation of a big applying aspect between two major planets. And then number two, the moon is out of bounds, has been out of bounds every month, twice a month in the north and in the south from 2020 to 2023. And the maximum lunestis happened in January this year. Moon out of bounds means excessive precipitation. Moon rules the watery elements of weather. So cloud cover, rain, hail, snow, sleet. It's all going to be more than normal. And in some cases, a lot more than normal. We have seen rivers flowing down the streets of the desert lands. We have seen snow out of season in South Africa in the warm season. Everywhere on earth, there have been abnormal weather conditions. And these are the two main features of that. Right. So for this talk, I mean, it's like I have to kind of put the Himalayas into a molehill because there's a lot to weather astrology and time is limited, understandably. So I'm cherry picking. We're going to focus on declination, which is the out of bounds, and also various positions on that declination chart. We're going to focus on major stations and eclipses. I cannot do the weather astrology for every planet, every city on the planet. That would be insane for starters. And secondly, I don't have enough hours in the day to do that. So I'm picking two representative cities, one in the Northern Hemisphere, one in the Southern Hemisphere, to illustrate. And then I will just bring in a hint of astrolocality, which is well used in weather astrology for storm chasing. Right, so before we begin, we have a major problem. Earth is bipolar. Why? Well, we've got a North Pole and a South Pole, and that can be seen in the skies. North Pole is Polaris in the little bear, Ursa Minor, which can be tracked from the pointer stars in the plow. Southern Hemisphere, we don't have a polar star. So what we do, we take the longer axis of the Southern Cross, extend it. We divide the pointers in Centaurus constellation, bisected and extend. And where those two intersect, we drop perpendicular down to Earth. And there we have the South Pole. Right, so our planet is tilted at 23.5 degrees to the plane of the Earth's orbit around the sun, as seen here. And this causes the seasons. Our representative cities are Athens in the north and Cape Town in the south. Why? Well, these are very iconic cities. They're ancient. Athens being settled for 5,000 years, Cape Town for 15,000 years. Table Mountain is 600 million years old, older than the Himalayas. And Cape Town was called Camissa, which means place of sweet waters, as well as where clouds meet. And they illustrate bipolar Earth. 20th of March this year, there's Athens, there's Cape Town. 21 June, summer in Athens, blustery winter in Cape Town, both Mediterranean climates. 22 September, we've got autumn, spring. 21 December, winter, summer. Right, so how do we see this astrologically? We have our fabulous declination graph, which we astrologers are particularly fond of. So there is the sun. It does a beautiful S shape over the course of a year. This is from March 2025 to end March 2026. So here we can see the sun crossing the equator in March and September. Here we see the sun at maximum northerly declination, and beyond that is the northern out of bounds band. This turning point is also called, the Greeks call this the tropos, the turning point. And this word tropos is the origin of the Western zodiac the tropical zodiac, comes out of this Greek word tropos. Because the Western zodiac is absolutely configured to this declination graph. Then December, we've got the southern tropos at the solstice. And beyond that southern tropos of the sun, we have the southern out of bounds band. So here we can see why the sun dominates the declination graph. All right, so in Athens, we have 0 Aries of the tropical zodiac in March. And that is when the sun is crossing the celestial equator. So this red line in the center is the celestial equator, Earth's equator projected up in a plane into space. And the sun is exalted and malefic Saturn is fallen, because in Athens, the heat was returning. The heat and the longer days were returning. And by the time the sun reaches its tropos, it is 0 Cancer. The summer season is given to the luminaries because it's the brightest time of the year. So cardinal Cancer leads off the summer, and followed by Leo. The month after is Leo, which is the intensity of summer. Then September, we have and at that point, we have benefic Jupiter exalted in Cancer and malefic Mars being fallen. So 0 Libra happens 22 September, and there we have malefic Saturn exalted. Why? Because the sun is now moving away from Athens. The weather is cooling. The autumn storm winds arrive, and the sun is fallen. Right, and then it continues its journey to 21 December, where we have malefic Mars exalted and benefic Jupiter fallen. Because in Athens, it is cold and blustery and rainy. It's cold Mediterranean winters, which are fairly tough. Okay, so I think I've proved the point. The planet's bipolar, the seasons are opposed. So what do we have to do for Cape Town? Well, we have to oppose the signs. This is how it is in weather astrology if you want to be able to read accurately. So 20th of March, we have 0 Libra because it's starting to get cold here. The winter winds, the autumn winds are arriving. 0 Capricorn. It's going to be cold and rainy in Cape Town and miserable. When that Cape Doctor blows, people get blown across the roads in Cape Town in winter. It's famous for that. Not the most fun season to be in Cape Town in June. 0 Aries happens on the 22nd of September. And there we have the sun exalted. Yay, the days are longer, the weather is heating up, and we South Africans are thrilled. And then at 0 Cancer, 21 December, we are at the beach, out in the sunshine, loving life. So there we have it. So World Astrology Day, we have a second World Astrology Day. So we're very happy to support the Northern World Astrology Day. But there's another one coming out of the southern climatic conditions. And so we invite the Northerners to celebrate that with us. It's the Southern Hemisphere spring. Right. Now, given the time constraints, I cannot go through this in detail, but I have a free handout of exactly what's on the screen. And so if you would like to email me, you can find my email on my website, which is on the brochure, corinjames-skyguide.com. And I will send you a PDF of the symbolism. So I just wanted to mention that Aries is cardinal spring, as we spoke. The ancients called cardinal movable, which in weather makes perfect sense. Every single day of the cardinals, the temperatures are increasing in the direction of the season. So it's becoming more and more spring-like temperatures. there is a violence factor, whether we look at temperature, wind, and moisture. So the violent Aries has a violence factor because it's ruled by malefic Mars. Taurus is the fixed spring. Fixity means in weather that the temperatures are constant. We've reached the intensity of the season and it stays the same for the whole month. Oops, go back. Mutable in old times called common, which makes so much sense because there's some days of spring and some days of summer. And that's how it is in these mutable season times. Right, let's move on to the summer symbolism. We've got Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. The violence associated with Cancer is downpours, heavy, heavy rains, because moon rules the water in weather. Sun is dry, but we have electrical storms in the violence. Right, let's proceed. Autumn, we've got Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. Scorpio is the stormiest sign in the zodiac. Everything is violent. There are extreme heat and cold. There is violent weather. There's extreme dryness and huge downpours and tornadoes and hurricanes. This is famously, Carolyn Egan discovered famously that Scorpio season, Sun in Scorpio, that was the major tornado time on Rhode Island. Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces bring up our winter symbolism. Capricorn and Aquarius, ruled by malefic Saturn. Saturn brings destructive and unseasonal weather. It's not helpful to humans and it's not friendly for farmers. Aquarius is dry, but there's a violence and it's electricity and atmospheric electricity and lightning. Right. Planet symbolism. So the planets are unbelievably archetypal and literally you can feel the planets in weather astrology. So you keep a weather diary and you're doing your predictions and you can check your predictions and learn how the symbolism is actually playing out in your backyard. It's fabulous. All right. So sun is, the violence of sun is lightning. Moon, the violence is rain. Mercury, the violence is strong winds. These are our three archetypal planet types, chart types that we do. So we do the solar, cardinal solar ingress. We do the lunar quarters, every single lunar quarter, because that the precipitation cloud cover is changing all the time. So we use that. Mercury is winds, and those are, we do every single sign ingress, as well as every station for the Mercury weather, for the wind. Mercury specifically predicts wind. Right, here are beautiful benefics. No violence. They're moderate, they're mild, they bring beneficial rain, they bring farmer-friendly weather, they bring good outdoor weather, Jupiter particularly, except if it's in Cancer or Pisces, then it will add some rain. Here are our malefics. Mars, it's turbulent, it stirs the atmosphere, it's about conflict, it's fighting. It's famous for fires, droughts, and storms. It brings hot extremes. Saturn, cold extremes, cold and extremes. And it is stormy weather and it's not friendly, basically, really not friendly, Saturn. All right, so what of our invisibles? They're also malefic. Uranus, record-setting weather. We've got sudden changes in temperature. We've got sudden storms and sudden gusts. We've got cloudbursts. We've got hail, like gigantic hail that punches through roofs and breaks cars and all that stuff. Neptune, freak weather. When it rains frogs, that's Neptune stuff. Mists, poor visibility. Pluto, destructive. There's extremes on the temp. There's violent, enduring winds. There's sleet with Saturn. Aspects. Conjunction is the most powerful, but along with conjunction, whether at the same status as conjunction, we have the parallel of declination. And Then hard aspects, we're talking harm 08 here, opposition square, semi-square, sesquiquadrate, contraparallel. They are violent. They disturb the atmosphere, especially when we've got conflicting planets of different natures and the malefics involved. Soft aspects, sextile trine, they can bring the fair weather, but if it is Mars trine Saturn, those malefics will overwhelm the trine and you will get some nasty weather for sure. All right. So let us have a look at that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, because that's part of the wild times ahead prediction that I've made. So here we go. This is 20 March this year. Saturn, this is Athens. Saturn, Neptune is at 29 Pisces, Saturn at 23. So you can see there's like a 6.5 degree difference. And what they do is they're going to wobble backwards and forwards with their retrograde dance. Saturn will come here and turn at 2 degrees of, so they're both forward at the moment. They will turn at roughly 2 Aries, Neptune slightly over, Saturn slightly under. Then they're going to retrograde. Saturn's going to turn at 25 of Pisces. Neptune will turn at 29, and they're going to meet at 0 degrees 45. Okay, so you can see it's not a huge gap. And as I mentioned, all the faster planets translating. If Mars translates, it brings conflict, turbulence. If Mercury translates, it adds wind factor. Moon translating adds the water. So this whole year, that's why I said freak storms. Okay, Cape Town, we are looking at Virgo and Libra. Those are 2 wind factors. The Athens is Pisces, which is watery, but it's also a gentle season, but Aries is violent. So they're going to be, there's real alternation from like gentle weather, beneficial weather, and nasty weather. Here in the southern hemisphere, we've got winds. Virgo's windy, Libra's windy. So Virgo because ruled by Mercury, Libra because it's an air sign. So that, I believe, will be factored in. We're going to have wind warnings. Okay, so same story. Right, moving on. Here is a 36-year declination graph. The moon has an 18-year cycle from minimum lunestus to maximum lunestus, back to minimum lunestus, back to 8 maximum lunestus, configured with the lunar nodes. So when the lunar node is at 0, has retrograded to 0 Aries, we are heading for maximum lunestus, which happened in January this year at 28 degrees 45. The minimum lunestus is coincides with the lunar north node at 0 Libra. This is of the northern tropical zodiac. And so this happens ongoing. So why at this time is everything so chaotic, so extreme? Okay, because in 2020, the moon went out of bounds. It stays out of bounds for 10 years, twice each month. It was about, at its max, it's like 4 or 5 days in the north, 4 or 5 days of every month in the south. Okay, and slowly, it's done its max. Now it's slowly going to pull back, but it's 5 years worth of pullback. But so 2020 is a standout year on planet Earth. The world locked down. I mean, I would never have believed it possible, but it actually, I lived through it. It happened. So what happened in 2020? Well, along with this, we had Saturn conjoining Pluto. We had Jupiter conjoining Pluto, and we had Jupiter conjoining Saturn. Those are 3 monster conjunctions. So 2020 was a monster of a year. 2024 brought Jupiter conjoining Uranus. And Uranus is, remember, it's like sudden, it's record-breaking weather activity, along with Jupiter, which is generally mild, but can be sort of expansive as well. And 2024 also wasn't a fun year weather-wise on planet Earth. And in between there was a Saturn-Uranus square. It was 2023. 2026, we have the upcoming Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And honestly, thank heavens, that's the end of these giant conjunctions. Now, the last time we had a bunch up of giant conjunctions was World War II. And the time before that was World War I. So when that started and I was looking at weather, and a friend of mine asked me to talk to a group of people in Plettenberg Bay, I looked at this and I said, I actually in the talk said, this is a war signature. But at the time there weren't major wars going on. And the wars have developed later. In the previous World War, by the time of the last conjunction, the war was winding down, the peace deals had been made and so on. But we are still sitting. Our wars kind of erupted a bit later, and we are still sitting on tenterhooks, basically. Right. So this is the power of declination plus monster conjunctions. It's not going to happen every time. Thank the heavens. All right. Supermoons. I'm a great fan of supermoons. Richard Nolly, American astrologer, coined the term, and he's the first astrologer since Johannes Kepler to have a terminology accepted by the astronomy community. In ancient times, astronomers and astrologers were one, but there's been a big divide between the scientific astronomers and the heaven knows what they call us astrologers. But it's coming back together, and I think it's terribly important to keep the astronomy in the astrology. All right, so here are supermoons for the year. 29th of March, we've got a super new moon solar eclipse. That's a stealth supermoon by Richard Nolly's definition. 27th March, we've got another stealth supermoon. And here we've got two luminous supermoons, November, December. This is just the lunar thing for the year. I've added the lunars onto the solars. All right. Here I've added in Mars into the declination, and I've added in Mercury. So you can see all the Mercury is a busy planet. Look at how it dances across that sky. All its little retrogrades I've put in here. Mars has been out of bounds for this whole year. And that Mars out of bounds is scary. It's wars, it's fires, it's droughts. It's not pleasant. Been out of bounds in the north. Well, the wars have been in the northern hemisphere. And at the same time, we have had Mars Max. So Mars Max began in October 2024. Nolly also defines and tracks Mars Max very elegantly. And thank heavens it ends in April. So we're still until the end of April, we're still on tenterhooks as regards war behavior and so on, and nasty weather. Right, moving on. I've now put everything in the graph. And what we have to notice with weather astrology, we take note of planets at the boundaries and beyond. We take note of planets on the equator, because those deliver storm warnings. So we've got Pluto cruising along the southern boundary. We've got Saturn and Neptune particularly close, cruising on the celestial equator. And then we have Jupiter touching up against the celestial, against the northern boundary, northern solar boundary, and Uranus somewhere in the vicinity. So all of our major malefics are in very powerful strategic positions. Right, so major events we look at, I've listed them here, but I've grouped them so that we can see July. We've got Neptune and Saturn stationing retrograde. And these stations often bracket gigantic storms. So July is a month to look out for storms. September, we've got Uranus retrograde station. We've got a lunar eclipse. We've got a solar eclipse. Eclipses also bring extreme weather. So September is a big month. Late November and December, Saturn and Neptune now station direct. Again, watch out. And then in January, late January, February, we've got Mars conjunct Pluto no fun at all weather-wise. Uranus stationary direct, and we've got a solar eclipse. As well as on the 20th of February, we have got the Saturn-Neptune actual conjunction. Right. So what I wanted to just illustrate is how we really actually do proper weather astrology with our 77 charts for the year. So this is our Aries ingress for Greece. We have, we pay 50% of our judgment goes to fourth house. It's Virgo, windy. 25% goes to the first house, Gemini, windy, Mercury, the ruler, angular. 12.5% to seventh and 10th house planets. So there we've got Saturn and Neptune and Venus and Mercury and the Sun, which gets its own 12.5% because it's the planet that rules. Okay, it's a lot more than this, but I just wanted to illustrate the principle. There is Cape Town, where we have Aquarius, which is cold with Saturn angular. First house Scorpio, which is violent with exalted Mars, Uranus in the house, Jupiter in the house. We in the 7th and 10th, we've got the rainy moon, Saturn, Neptune in 10, and the Sun also in 10. Right. Partial solar eclipse to illustrate how we do the moon, exactly the same way. So for each little quarter is done the same way. So for Athens, with our 29 March eclipse, we have fourth house Libra, which is windy, Mercury in Aries in the 9th. The first house, 25%, is rainy Cancer with the moon in Aries, Aries being a violent sign. 7th house, we've got Pluto. 10th house, nothing. Moon is in Aries. So as I said, violent sign. And then Cape Town is going to be hot Aries with an exalted Mars, hot Sagittarius with a dignified Jupiter. We've got an eclipsed sun in our 10th, and we've got the moon in Libra in the 10th wind. So we've got, it's going to be hotter than average, and it's going to be windier than average for this week from 29 March in Cape Town. So here we've got, we plot the, I've plotted that 29 March eclipse on astrolocality. And so we can see where the eclipse goes angular. We're looking through Eastern America, Washington, close to Washington, Western South America through the Antarctic, up through Indonesia, China, and Russia. And then MC, it's through Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, and Africa. Cape Town being highlighted. And then here I see just go part of Alaska, Western Alaska. So if this has piqued your interest and you would love to follow in the footsteps of Aristotle, Ptolemy, Kepler, Zadkiel of England, Alfred Pierce of England, Benjamin Franklin, American presidents Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Adams, C.C. Zane, George McCormack, and the last illustrious weather astrologer was Carolyn Egan, who called herself Weather Sage out of Rhode Island. And you want to learn one of the most ancient and archetypal forms of astrology. I've opened registration for my weather astrology course, and I start teaching on the 2nd of June. It's intermediate level. If you're interested, email me. There's my email. You can also find information on my website, which is listed on the brochure. And it's a fabulous astrology. It enhances your understanding of natal, of horary, mundane. I love it. And so to play us out, I've turned to Rumi again, because these are challenging times. These are chaotic times. But Mother Nature also provides, also supports, also cares. Look how beautiful she is. And so this is what Rumi has to say. Moon and evening star do their slow tambourine dance to praise this universe. The purpose of every gathering is discovered, to recognize beauty and to love what's beautiful. So I'd like to thank Wade for the opportunity, and to thank all who will be listening, are listening, and will be listening to the talk. And may you have the grace to find and appreciate and imbibe the beauty, and to hug your friends, and to love your pets and touch your pets and get the oxytocin flowing. Let us bring the best that humanity can bring in these challenging times. Thank you.